Finally, someone from the far north came to New York sort of 8 years after the building was put in the drawers and said, we must build this building. It has so much, meaning for the Norwegian people, for our literature, and for our town of Hamarøy. And he went to the parliament and he got it funded. And Norway has plenty of money. It's one of the richest countries per capita on the globe. So they had the money. But now they wanted to build it and they wanted to open it on the 140th? I can't remember exactly if it's the 140th or 100th anniversary of Knut Hamsun on August 4th, 2009, and it had to open that day or else. So now, after 15 years of waiting, we had to build the building in 12 or 13 months. So they worked on 24-hour cycles, 3 8-hour shifts, and they finished it, and it was great. And that's something I'm very proud of. If you go to Hamarøy, the landscape is like this. It's an amazing place. But the light inside the building is also very, very amazing because it changes according to the seasons, and the way the building lays out as a series of movements in a spiral up. The windows actually slice through, and they organize the space in a very particular way. And the sun sets on December 17th, doesn't rise again until January 25th or something like that. So there's 10 or 8 weeks of solid darkness where the sun never rises. And then in the summertime, I think this might be the last day of sun in December. They always send me the first day and the last. They send me an email to let me know the light has come back or is going away. It's a very magical place, Knut Hamsun Center. And in that book that I thought to organize all of the times of architecture: diurnal time, seasonal time, linear time, like we live in linear time. Everything has to be new. That's the hell of the furniture fair, right? Every damn chair has to be new. These chairs look to me uglier every year they look uglier. I mean, like chair, it's a chair. So linear time is our, in a way it's our prison. But the Greeks had cyclical time, The Greeks just improved. And that's why the great architecture of Athens. So then there's global time versus local site time. It's very different. Now we all live in a global time. My office in Beijing, they're sending me some emails, global time. And then there's duration of the conception. You can take 6 months to design something, or maybe 1 day. And then there's the duration of the construction. It can be finished in a year, or maybe it takes 17 years. And then there's the experience of going through the building. But then I thought, after I published the book, I made a mistake. I left out the most important, the immeasurable. So now I put that there. So if anybody bought that book, I'm ready to inscribe this in there for them. Correction. Because that was the most important time to Lucan, the immeasurable. And Le Corbusier called it the ineffable, unmeasurable. And that's the poetic, the time of the life that we live. And another project, maybe more recent, Under the Sky and Under the Sea, the Surf Museum in Biarritz, which is really a public space lifted up and tilted toward the horizon of the sea. So in some ways, that kind of idea that we all return to the sea is really at the heart of this building. It's about surfing, but it's also about the health of the sea. And that's under this big wave of the piazza that's under. There's absolutely nothing on that curve, so it feels like a wave, and those are the exhibits. So the underspace is important as the public space above, where it's a great place to watch the sunset. Another project about time, I think, and light is the Chapel of St. Ignatius in my hometown of Seattle. And it has a wonderful quality of, let's say, connecting to the spiritual exercises of the Jesuits, where there's a kind of complementary color in these 7 bottles of light. Wherever there's blue, there's a yellow field. Where there is yellow, there's a blue field. Where there's green, there's a red field. These idea of the complementary colors, almost like the Jesuits' spiritual exercises. And now I changed this lecture. I put in a project that I haven't shown in 15 years. And it was something that Paolo Iacucci and I did for the city of Cassino. And I was trying to remember if this place was bombed by the Allies during the war. It's true? And I remember when we went there, and I didn't know that history, but it's hard to believe, not so long ago that the Allies could bomb, anyway, a monastery. So anyway, we made a city museum, but they didn't have a program. So I decided to just make up spaces that they could use in any different way, but they would be a space of light and time. Just the idea of a very small slice of light, but each one is a different slice of light. So I think there were like 20 galleries, and they could be used in a very flexible way. And then they could, and the building was very simple. There was a piazza that was defining the piazza, the edge. There was some housing around the edge, and then the building just was organized around not so difficult, just a simple a stained concrete, but organized around the internal condition, almost like a score, like a dance score, like Laban notation in dance, that each room would have a different kind of light in section. And what happened? And so we made a series of models, and we worked all summer with like 5 students just making models about how light could come in different ways. And that's something we couldn't draw. We had to do it with models. It was all experimental. And there were some very beautiful spaces which the sunlight does very magical things in ways that it's very hard to predict. You can't do this in the computer because the source of light falls off from the source to the distant at a square root of the distance from the source to the. So the ray tracing programs in computers won't do this for you. If you're interested in making experiments in light, you have to make models. So this was a great project. I still think I want to work on it again. I think it's a very interesting project for Cassina. And then I have a couple very recent project, which is really about, it's called a Symphony of Modules. It's a gallery and house in Seoul, Korea. And it's based on a piece of music that was never played. It was called Symphony of Modules. And it was a piece that was written in 1967 by Isfahan Anhalt. And it required so many people in the orchestra, I think 240. There was never the money to ever play this piece. And we adopted the score and made the building into 3 pieces. Underneath, there's a gallery that connects everything. And the sort of staff lines became skylights. There are 59 skylights. And then there's a sheet of water that unites everything. So you can see the whole conception's already there in about 10 watercolors. And then the building was realized very rapidly in a year and a half, or maybe 2 years. Working in Asia is real pleasure because unlike America or Europe, where things take 10 years, in Asia they take 2 years. So this project was really a very joyful one to work on. It was a great client. It's semi-public. It's open for concerts and exhibitions. There's the entrance courtyard. And there are 3 parts to the building. There's the guest, and then there's the center, which is the entrance piece. That's where that man is standing. So when you walk into the building, as soon as you walk in, you walk up the steps, and your elbow is at the height of the water. It's a very great experience because you're inside, but you're looking at the outside, which is really an inside of 2 other outsides. And you see everything floating on its own reflection. So I think it's something a little bit about time in this. certainly about light. But the problem of, let's say, a global time or a time that we think we're in, that we occupy, but it's only our mind that imagines that time that we're in, that we're inside of. So the house to me is a very special one that way, because it's a measure, it's a kind of measure of reflection and a measure of this kind of condition of being inside or outside and inside, or inside another outside that we're not sure of. There's at winter time, then it's thin sheet of ice, or thin amount of ice. That's in Korea, so it gets cold in the winter, and that freezes just a thin. And it's all sheathed in a very, almost like leather, copper with a patina. And I couldn't get the proper color. So I rejected all the samples in Korea, and we actually made all the skin of the building in Kansas City, where they could get exactly the right color. And it was all shipped to Korea and installed by Americans from Kansas City. So everything is not made in Asia. It couldn't be the other way around. And we did the furniture and the carpets and the light fixtures. And the whole experience, oh, you can see the skylight and the movement of the light. Very important. So to spend some time in the space is very important to understand it. You need to be in there for a while because everything changes. That's the gallery. And the gallery needs no artificial light. It can be all lit just by the natural light coming from the water. It's formed in bamboo-formed concrete. And there's a fountain at the entranceway. So when you're standing in the courtyard, you can hear this water, and you know that's that whole sheet of water draining slowly off into the entranceway. So this is a project that we're doing in London, my first project in the United Kingdom, for Maggie's Cancer Center. You've probably seen the Maggie Centers by Frank Gehry, and Oma has done one, and Zaha's done one. So it's a kind of gift for the healing. And this is by a very important hospital, St. Bartholomew's Hospital in the center of London. That courtyard is St. Bartholomew's courtyard. And the color pieces are little Maggie's center. And it's based on the idea of shape notes or neumes, which was from St. Bartholomew's Church in the 11th and 12th and 13th centuries. The monks sang according to this notation. And I wanted to connect the actual Maggie Center to that old music. I think the music has a sense of healing. So that was the idea, that the 13th century neume notation could be somehow inscribed in the curtain wall of this small building. It's only 5,000 square feet. And the idea of, let's say, the staff, the musical staff, that originated through the Gregorian chants from the 12th to the 13th century. So in fact, the 5 lines of the staff are like the 5 lines of the hand. So the idea is the building is a thing within a thing within a thing. So inside is a bamboo interlayer. Then there's the concrete structure, and then there's this outside skin which has the neume notation embedded in the glass. And there's a piece, there's just an image of the context. But what we've invented is really exciting. There's a company called Okolux, and we're working with them, and we have a new way to make a kind of stained glass that's blurry, like a Mark Rothko painting. So that's the breakthrough for this project, is the color and the way that we're going to do these embeds in the glass. And now we're trying to raise money. So if there's anyone with a lot of money here, please give it to Maggie's Centers, especially the one at St. Bart's in London. And the final project is my project where Lebbeus Woods' piece, Lebbeus Woods, who was my friend for 40 years, finally realized a work of architecture in our sliced porosity block in Chengdu. I invited him and Ai Weiwei and myself to do pavilions in this block. All of our work in China is against monofunctional object icon buildings. We try to make spaces. We made spaces with the Beijing linked hybrid, make a big public space, we gave a public garden in Shenzhen in our horizontal skyscraper, but maybe the most important one so far is in Chengdu because it's more generic. It's about creating a big public space. Chengdu, by the way, is the oldest city in China with the same name. Over 3,000 years. You can look back at all the maps in China. You can't find Beijing or Shanghai or any of the cities that you may know, but you will see it's called Chengdu, right? That's right there, and it's sort of, I say it's a stabilizing force. By the way, it's a city that's really very, very, very active at the moment. And so the project was financed by Singaporean developers that have several projects in China. And the project has many functions: offices, 2 hotels, apartments, service apartments, shops, retail, cafes. It's a piece of a city, 3 million square feet piece of the city. And the developers had a formula where they build a podium, which is closed and has shopping in it, and they build a office tower and a condominium tower. And we said, we're not doing that. We're going to make a public space with your program.